When you're feeling down and you're out, like you got nothing but doubt, you're alone in the crowd, just trying to figure it out. All looks bad, and this money got you feeling left out. Listen up to me now, every word that's out of my mouth. Wake up, it's me. You gonna follow your dreams, or are you just gonna be another cog in the scene? You feel the hope in this beat, yeah, the hope that you need to proceed and be exactly what you want it to be. I feel right, and I'm proud, and I'm loud. I'ma shout all about how I feel in the now. Ain't nobody ever gonna try to change me till I'm dead, pushing up daisies. I'm alone in the crowd, I won't feel down. I got hope right now, and I know I'll be found. I don't really care just what all other haters gotta say. I know everything I do is gonna make them fade away. And when you feel like you're nothing, but you wanna be something.
You all hear me good? How am I doing?
All you really need is hope. I just want you to trust me if you wanna be something.
Okay, it hit the minute.
All you really need is hope. Take a look in the mirror. Are you seeing some fear? You hear the voice in your ear. Can you...
Okay. How's everyone doing tonight? So, I am a fan of Unfound Cause. Oh, sorry, Found Cause. Sorry. But the videos haven't opened great. And to be very blunt, when I was featuring them more on my channel, my views, my subscribership all went down. I don't know what they're doing wrong, but they're doing something wrong. But this video was great. All the mistakes they've been making in their previous videos, they weren't doing it here. They were on target. They were hitting hard. They were doing a good job on this video. I'm going to be very blunt. Now, I've only watched maybe a little bit more than half of the video. I was going to save this for Monday, but I also want other people to watch their video. I want this video to direct people to their video. So we're going to watch some of it now, and we'll maybe watch a little bit on Monday. And then from there, whatever we don't cover, just go watch their video, comment on their video. And there's several reasons why I want to do this. I just did Javier. I turned white for a second. I just did Javier Peremo, and it was a terrible video. It wasn't good. And he was trying to do what they do in this video. They do properly what Javier was trying to do, and he sucked at it. No, maybe it's because this is, I don't know what video this is for them. Hold on, let me see. I'm not going to check. But anyway, maybe it's because they've been doing this for a while and their channel really hasn't taken off, so they've kind of had to try different things so that they're learning, they're growing. But this was great. This was opposing Catholicism. This was opposing the actual views that Catholicism holds. This was having a much better... They've had wackadoo takes on Catholicism and other religions. They weren't doing that here. They were saying what they disagree with, and then they were giving their reason why they disagree with it and what their perspective is. Now, I don't agree with their perspective, otherwise I wouldn't be Catholic. I'm Catholic. But I think they did a great job. So we're going to cover some of that. We're not going to cover all of it. I also want to do a little bit, depending on how long we go, I also want to do a little bit of Trent Horn's interview with Pints with Aquinas, and there's another video that came out today that I wanted to cover. But please go subscribe, go watch Found Cause. Like I said, I'm probably gonna take this video, download it, and turn it into either a short or into shorts, I guess, or turn it into an edited down, pared down version of whatever we do here tonight together. Right now, I don't have any audience in here yet, so I'm kind of talking to my future viewers. But don't let some of Found Cause journey dissuade you from watching their stuff, okay? Because they are getting better, they are improving. So go watch them. They're getting stronger in their apologetics. They're getting stronger in their understanding of other faiths. I think the two biggest problems with them is one is they don't have the it factor, and that hurts everybody. That hurts me. That hurts my channel. I don't have the it factor currently. I'm not the golden child. But the other thing that hurts them is they don't have the degrees. They don't have any of the stuff that's currently going on. And they don't have a strong understanding of the faiths they're talking against. They have a strong understanding from their perspective, but not from the perspective of the people they're attacking. People is the wrong thing. The beliefs they're attacking. So they do a much better job here, and we're going to get into that. So here we go. I don't want to talk too long. I'm very impressed by how they've grown in quality.
Who happens to be on the other side of the screen here if you see him. He, of course, doesn't know we're here. We are reacting to this video after the fact in case you're tempted to think he's live on a call, being frozen. He's not. Redeem Zoomer. How did you saw this guy before I did, right?
Yeah, it's pretty big on Instagram and then started posting more videos and became, I would say, pretty big.
Yeah, I mean, he's only been around for a little bit, so it's kind of hard to tell like how faddy he is. He's clearly not a fatty. What's his shtick? Yeah, he's a Zoomer, so he's Generation Z. So are we, by the way, by like a year. So
I'm Gen X. Hence, I can do the horns and not feel like it's evil. For my usual audience, if you guys come in, I saw someone hop in and hop out. For my usual audience, if you guys come in, I'm going to try not to cuss as much in this video. Not because I'm going to suddenly give in to that and suddenly stop cussing. Don't worry, we're back to normal on Monday. I want this video to help out Found Cause. Okay, they're my opposition. I'm going to be very clear. I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm not saying anything like that. But they're putting in hard work. They're putting in the hours. They're doing what they can to become a better channel, and I want to support that. Let's not worry about us having religious and philosophical and theological disagreements. That we can hammer out whenever me and Found Cause. Sorry, I did the joke in my title, and now I can't stop doing it. What me and Found Cause disagree on, we can hammer that out later. They're a good small channel and they're getting better at their craft, and I want people to watch them. And I know a lot of people stopped watching them, as they were trying to figure things out. But I think they're getting better. I really do. That doesn't mean I think they're agreeing with me. They're not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're getting better at the craft.
that who knows if that'll change. We're like barely Zoomers. He's a little younger than us. We're 27. He's probably 25, 24.
I'm 44.
Sounds about right.
You got the hairline to prove it. Man, I'm going to shave my head, guys. It's going to happen.
He may be a little younger.
I'm gonna
In
have
any
to.
case, he's not like 17. He is.
A week and a half without being able, 2 weeks without being able to run, and I'm getting a little bit of the gut back, and I'm really upset about it. Part of it is that I'm not doing extra exercises to make up for the fact that I can't run and skateboard and bike ride. But tomorrow I'm going to be biking, so hopefully.
He's an adult. I think post college as well.
Mm-hmm.
And what's his shtick? Like, how did you discover him?
He started posting all these beautiful church buildings, and
So I discovered Redeem Zoomer from his video on Catholicism that popped up, the original video that he did on Catholicism. And I watched him from there. I don't know if I watched him before or after I discovered Gavin Ortlund. But Gavin Ortlund is the first Protestant that I've ever heard that sounded reasonable, which is so disappointing about what happened with him endorsing Javier Peremo. His video. That was severely, that broke my heart a little bit with Gavin Ortlund.
I like beautiful church buildings, so I was like, what the heck is this? And his whole mission was like, this is what Protestantism used to be, as you can see in this image here. Beautiful, grand, well-designed churches. And now a lot of non-denominational churches could be Baptist, or even, there are even Catholic churches in Latin America that look just like that. So He's saying this is garbage. We don't need this modernity. We should go back to how it used to be. There's also another image right behind us of the pilgrims and a Presbyterian cathedral, I assume, and then a beautiful inside of another cathedral too. So his thing is make Protestantism traditional, aesthetic, cool again, and also that
I don't think Protestantism ever has been cool, but that's just me.
eventually developed later, retaking his denomination from liberalism, PCUSA.
Yeah, which is the very liberal, the rainbow
I think the last time Protestantism had a chance of being cool was during the Reformation.
flag donning liberal version in the U.S. They are fully liberal, so they're not like the sort of liberals, or you might. Some conservatives are always claiming that their current denomination is too liberal, which I do that too, so I get it. But this is not like fake liberal. This is like really liberal with the rainbow flag and everything. I think he made his first break on YouTube, at least, by doing Kingdom Craft, meaning he was playing Minecraft and talking about theology, which is USAers. But
again, if you want to see what you're missing, go watch their video.
As we said, he's young, which means he was raised in a bad denomination. PCUSA is even by his own.
Okay, so Redeemed Zoomer comes from a Jewish background and from a secular background. So he was not raised in the PCUSA. So he's getting this fact wrong. Redeemed Zoomer says that he came from a Jewish background, but it was a secular Jewish background. Now, I'm basing this on his interview with Trent Horn and his interview, I believe, with Pint with Aquinas. I'm not really sure. It could have been with Gospel Simplicity or with Gavin Ortland. But anyway, he talks about his background in one of those major interviews. I believe it was with Trent Horn, because both him and Trent Horn have similar backgrounds. Trent Horn was also in a non-religious Jewish household.
Own definition of bad denomination run by liberals, a gospel denying denomination, as far as they don't really believe that Jesus existed in leadership, and they definitely affirm sin as being necessary for being a good Christian. The problem for him is that he's so young. He's not like he had 40 years of being ministered to by a great church, and then he starts fighting the war. He has been in a terrible church his whole life, and it's still terrible, and he wants to stay and try to fight the good fight, but it means he has.
Like I said, that's not the background that he himself gives of himself. So I don't know if they heard something different somewhere, or if they're just getting some of their facts wrong.
Has no church. It means he is churchless. He's in a church that's not very good for him. He doesn't have good counsel. And so, as you might imagine, I think that is not wise. I would not recommend these.
By the way, if Unfound Cause is watching this right now, you guys are welcome to hop into the chat. I am not doing StreamYard, so I can't just pull you guys in if you guys are in the audience. But feel free to chat along, and I can even send you a link. The Streamlabs links are terrible, but you're more than welcome to come on or to attempt to come on if you want. But yeah, hello. And I'll post something right now in my community
Stick it out
chat.
in a terrible church and hope that it gets better strategy.
I put out a new video today. Go watch it. It's really good. It's the John Barden History of the Bible, recommended by Dan McKellen, and I do the review. It's pretty good. The book's good and the review's good, both.
The attitude about it, as far as when
I'm calling my own stuff good.
I think you can only do that when the church is something legitimate, and the PCOSA church is just not legitimate. It left legitimacy too long ago to warrant staying. That's not to say we should advocate. I feel like we should advocate from outside the PCOSA to get the church's building back and hope something happens there. But you need a good, godly church to be part of. So if you are in the PCOSA, we advocate you get out. This isn't they're almost woke, so like hold the line and vote conservative. It's a long time ago went liberal. You're already living in a bad church, so you need a church as a Christian. Get out and find there's plenty of biblical churches around you. So not only do I disagree with his approach there as far as the reconquista, he calls it, retaking liberal churches, I also disagree with the topic of this episode. So let's react. We've got a lot of premise here. Do you have anything to say before we jump in?
He used to be very, very friendly to other denominations like Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, probably Copts as well. I have no idea. And on those. And then eventually, a lot of people in his channel started converting to these denominations. Mm-hmm. And then they also started commenting on his videos saying, you are a heretic. You need to come to the one true Holy Apostolic Church. Which one?
The Coptics, the Orthodox, the Roman Catholics, they all say they are the original, the OG.
Yes. Very confusing, I would say. And then he started pretty much making a case for Protestantism. So he had a few discussions and also a debate. I forget if it was with Jay Dyer. I'm off the top of my head right now. And
Some Eastern Orthodox
yes,
group.
he did not believe it went so well. I was like, oh well, no, you can't all be jealous. Okay, it's all right. Doesn't prove one side or the other. It just means that there's opportunity to grow in debate experience. That's fine, and that's what prompted this. This part of that journey is what prompted this video.
So let's watch him. There we go.
Hey guys, I'm Redeemed Zoomer, and today I'm going to explain why I've decided to stop doing Protestant apologetics. I'm not going to be making any more videos defending Protestantism or attacking.
And it's hard not to hear him say that and not think of it as a victory for Catholicism. Even I, when I heard him say that, I'm like, look, I don't like where they're going to go with this on him. I don't think it's right to put it on him. But I had the exact same thought. My exact thing was, is he about to pull a Canon Bertuzzi and become Catholic or Orthodox? You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, is he about to do it? Like, is that what's happening? It just sounds that way. I don't think he means it that way, but it sounds that way. It sounds like he just got his ass kicked by Catholicism, or mentally got his butt kicked by Catholicism. I know I'm trying not to curse, and it's really hard for me not to. Give me a second. I'm going to go plug my phone, and it's about to die. And if my wife calls me, I got to be able to answer. Oh, that's gross. Ah, it fell. And that's it. I also linked Redeem Zoomer on this. I don't even. I don't think Redeem Zoomer knows who I am. 2, if he does know who I am, I don't think he would be caught dead on my channel. So, I'm just saying. But Found Cause, if you guys are up right now and you guys are watching this, you're welcome in the chat. And like I said, I'll send you links. But the collab cam on Streamlabs is terrible. Only one person has ever figured out how to get audio from their mic onto this channel using Streamlabs.
Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy. There's 3 main reasons why, but one of them is not that I'm leaving Protestantism. I've always been Presbyterian ever since I converted to Christianity, and I intend to always be Presbyterian because the Presbyterian tradition is awesome. But there are 3 important reasons. Number 1 is that I never intended to be a Protestant.
Is Presbyterian the Calvinist one? I always forget. Which one's the Protestant one? What's the name of the Protestant one? Ugh. The Calvinist one. Sorry. What's the name of the Calvinist one? It's Presbyterian, right? It is Presbyterian? Which one's the real name of the Calvinist church? It's not, because I know there's no Calvinist church that's called Calvinist. Oh, that'd be pretty funny.
I had many goals when making my YouTube channel. I wanted to educate people about Christianity. I wanted to contribute to revival of the mainline Protestant churches. I wanted to help fight liberalism in the mainline Protestant churches. And I wanted to foster ecumenism between the different denominations and help different denominations understand each other better.
But see, there's already other channels doing a much better job of that. If you ever watch Matt Whitman, he's doing that, and he's still holding the Protestant line. Now, I thought he was more, and progressive is the wrong word here, but I thought he was more ecumenical than he actually is. So his material is kind of at odds with his personal beliefs, but, you know, I mean, hypocrites exist, and that's fine. It's a thing we all have to deal with, myself included.
On one point, I think, in that it's not really his. You can only pick so many niches, I think, to defend, especially as a YouTuber, and not just a person or a theologian, but as a YouTuber.
I'm picking up the volume on my mic just a little bit. If it starts to pop, let me know, and I'll turn it back down.
And so he's saying it was supposed to be a channel about getting young liberal Presbyterian kids excited again about actual theology, I suppose. And I think it's kind of a mixed goal when you say it also has ecumenism in there. It's like what exactly you're trying to do. But fair enough, in that you don't want to pay attention. You don't want to take your time to make videos or do debates or whatever against non-Protestants because it's not your focus. Okay, like some ministries aren't focused on that, so I get it.
That's fair. If you don't,
and and I'm going to call it a ministry, but That might be the wrong term, but my channel, my ministry is focused on outreach to the rejected, to the lost sheep, to the outcast, to the outsider. That's who I'm talking to. I am not talking to the converted. I am not talking to the saved. I am talking to the outcast, the rejected, the lost. That's who I am. That's who I'm here for. That's who I'm here to talk to. That's who I'm here to let you know that God loves you, to let you know you're already forgiven. You just have to accept the forgiveness. And at the end, change your ways and follow him or follow me. However you want to say the word. But the point is to follow Jesus Christ. That's what we're doing on this channel. We are not doing apologetics. This is an anti-apologetics channel dedicated to anti-apologetics. That's the main theme. And the second theme is going to be philosophy and mostly philosophy. And then just a little touch of entertainment. That's what we're doing. And maybe throw in some politics every once in a while. So just to be clear, I'm totally down with what Redeemed Zoomer is saying here. If he wants to focus on outreach and not apologetics, I'm cool with that. He doesn't have to become a Catholic to do good Christian outreach. But the problem is that's not the way he's presented himself for a while now.
I feel like that's your calling. Okay, more power to you. However, you need to have also a good reason for now. I think he's going to get into that. Should someone then be debating these groups? I mean, that's what.
I mean, you're welcome to debate. Just know I'm going to win. Oh, you meant other apologists out there. I'm sorry. You want to talk to Trent Horn? He's not cool.
Immediately comes to mind.
Yeah, is Protestant apologetics worthwhile? Even if you aren't doing it. Like I don't do what apologetics do we not do? We kind of touch on everything in this podcast because we like to, but I don't know, soup ministries that give out soup to the homeless. Sometimes I argue they're not very good, but it's really not my calling thing, so I don't do it. But I wouldn't say that it's necessarily bad. I guess that's a whole other can of worms on whether or not certain kinds of charities are good. But I don't know, things that I don't participate in that aren't my strong suit or my gifting from God aren't necessarily bad, right? They're just not my thing. I've talked about it in many episodes before, and we can give a little preview here too, but they have left the church. They are no longer Christian denominations, just like Mormons are not Christian denominations.
Oh, I wanted to hear that part. Hold on. I skipped too far ahead.
Like-
I skipped too far ahead. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay, I think right here. Let's go from right here.
That he's making peace with Gnostics, that he's making peace with heretics, that he's making peace with people who deny the the video. I am putting Protestant apologetics since they are gospel level issues. Protestants and Eastern Orthodox, maybe not, but Sebastian brought 3 books today to even talk about this. The dividing lines between Roman Catholics and Protestants and Eastern Orthodox are not small. They are big, and they should be big because they are gospel level issues. So,
They're not gospel level issues. They're misunderstandings on. They're not even misunderstandings from the gospel. So I just got done reviewing John Barton's History of the Bible, A History of the Bible. It's a broad overview of the evolution of how scholars, and scholars here has to be a big tent because there's not all academia, but we're talking about going all the way back to the rabbinical, even before that, to the Jewish scholars, later the rabbinical scholars, then to the early church fathers, then to the ecumenical councils, then to the reformers, then to the philosophers, scholastics, and theologians, including the heretics, up until modern day secular, critical academia scholarship. And it's covering a very broad range of the different views of how to interpret the Bible and what's going on there. For the way that Found Cause as a group, as a trio, when they're all 3, for their interpretation of what the gospel or what the Bible is to be true, everything I just mentioned has to be false. Not just the people who wrote the Bible have to be wrong about what they intended. Not only does the original audience's interpretation of the Bible have to be wrong. But the context and the history and development of criticism and philosophy has to be wrong. Even simple logic has to be wrong. And understanding of chronology and historical events has to be wrong for their understanding to be correct. Now, here's the crazy shot in the dark. None of us have time machines, so we don't know. There is a 1% chance. I would say less than 1%. I'm pretty sure they would say there's a 99% chance from their point of view that they're correct. But anachronisms, critical scholarship, history, manuscripts, all of this stuff points to, and commentary throughout history points to they're wrong. But again, maybe all the commentary was forged in the Middle Ages. And maybe all the mistakes and anachronisms and different translations, maybe those are all from heretical groups and there's one true, pure Bible that's exactly the way they say it is. Maybe the theological and dogmatic views that are interposed and laid over the Bible to make it interpret a certain way, maybe all of that really is from pre the Bible being written, and it's going in. It's not the past looking back and rearranging how history worked. It's actually, that is the correct thing. Moses really did write the Pentateuch. Maybe, more likely not, but maybe. So just to be very clear, just because I'm disagreeing with them doesn't mean that their argument has no weight. It's just in academia and in scholarship, it holds little weight.
So our concern with this kind of video, I am putting Protestant apologetics and saying that he's the most pro-Catholic Protestant out there, pro-Eastern Orthodox Protestant out there, is that he's making peace with Gnostics, that he's making peace with heretics, that he's making peace with people who deny the gospel, and therefore he is letting his audience.
So again, you would then have to assume that there was a Protestant Christian, I don't know, subsistence within the Catholic Church the entire time. Otherwise, there were no true Christians until the Reformation. So this argument does not work.
Run into death with open arms and blinded eyes. We understand that Eastern Orthodox and Catholics, Roman Catholics, share a lot of our Christian history, but we have talked about it many episodes before, and we can give a little preview here too, but they have left the church. They are no longer Christian.
Again, chronologically, historically, what they're saying makes no sense, but at least they're saying something. Again, we just did a week of Javier saying nothing and trying to show contradiction where there is no contradiction because they're opposing sides, and trying to do it ironically to say, well, you don't like it when it's done to you, you can't do it to Protestants. That's not what they're doing. These guys are not being wimps about it. And yes, I would normally use a different word. These guys are not being wimps about it. They're not pointing the finger and saying, look, you're being mean to us. They're saying we're wrong. Okay? That's a totally different thing. This is not them whining, being scared, and being hurt that a Catholic defeated a prominent Protestant. And the Protestant is holding up the white flag going, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is not them being hurt. They're analyzing and saying, he's wrong for quitting, and I'm wrong for believing what I'm believing. That's what they're saying. This is much more manly. This is much more assertive. And this is much more palatable. Their message, without proper context and without proper rebuttal, could sway a Catholic to become a Protestant. That's why I'm rebutting them, because it needs to be rebutted. What Javier Peremo did was whine, lie, and fake controversy, causing schism, causing scandal. That's not what they're doing. They're pointing out where they think the faults and sins of the Catholic Church, of the Orthodox Church are. I disagree with them, but we'll get into that.
Christian denominations, just like Mormons are not Christian denominations, even when they claim to be.
And to further clarify, just like how there are faithful people in the PCUSA, like this nice guy, Redeemed Zoomer, or Bruce Gore somewhere, somehow in the wilderness of Washington State, somehow holding on to true, or in the small Orthodox, lowercase Orthodox belief. Likewise, there may be a lot of faithful Christians within Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. What we're trying to say is that just like the PCUSA leadership is apostate, the leadership of these other branches of Christendom, Orthodoxy, Coptic Christianity, and Catholicism, and sadly, breaks my heart, Nestorianism too, the leadership is apostate. So that's what we mean. Not the
Did you say Nestorianism? I know this thing said historianism, but is this a Nestorianism? Isn't Nestorianism like a classic heresy?
lay people, but we mean the leadership.
Although, with the exception of converts who convert to Catholicism,
Oh,
and
yes,
Orthodoxy,
yes.
Nestorianism, that are combating you, combating Redeemed Zoomer, combating a Protestant, and they're passionate about the distinctives of Roman Catholicism or
Yes.
Copticism or whatever, they also have embraced the heresy. So we allow for those who were born into Roman Catholicism, born into Coptic Christianity, born into Nestorianism, to believe the gospel but still culturally relate themselves to the religion that their parents were, without actually believing its tenets. But somebody who embraces the tenets, we would.
So I fully embrace Catholicism. I was A, born into it, but B, I left when I was 13, and I didn't come back until I was 33. So I'm now 44, by the way. So I've now been back in the church 9 years. So there is something to be said about this conversation, which is they're not wrong. There are a lot of Catholics who don't know anything about Catholicism, and their whole exposure to dogma comes from apologists. And apologists are salesmen. Apologists are liars. That's why this is an anti-apologetics channel. I've read Vatican II. I've read the first 7 ecumenical councils, minus like some context. I've read the in-between synods, the ones that we have on record. I have not read the Lateran councils. I want to be very clear. I haven't read those. But I've read Trent. I've read the the Syllabus of Errors, a lot of stuff. And then I've also read the Protestant stuff. I've read the Protestant Confessions, the Augsburg, Lutheran. I don't know. There's like several big ones. The Chicago Statement. I've read all this stuff. Okay, I've read everything that's in dogma. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I've read all this like relevant material. So I am affirming Catholicism knowingly. Like I know what Catholicism actually teaches. I would not have the guts, and yes, I would normally use another word, to go up against Trent or Jimmy if I hadn't read these things. And I read them because when I would listen to Catholic Answers, I would hear them reference these things. And I wanted to know if what they were saying was true. Because just because someone says something doesn't mean it's true. I want to go and I want to read. I want to see the reference. And sometimes, most of the time, yeah, they were fairly accurate. Every once in a while, they were really, really wrong. And when they were really, really wrong, it usually wasn't because the gloss or the surface thing was wrong. It's because when you looked at the reference to the reference, the actual the deeper text, the deeper context was not what they were claiming it was. Luckily for me and my faith, it ended up being something better. It ended up being something that was richer and was more nuanced and more allowable than what they were saying. And again, that's why I want to do a little bit tonight of Trent Horn's interview with Pints with Aquinas, because he exposes himself really bad. He explains exactly what his game is. But it's not disappointing for me because I've already discovered this about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. when I had my break with apologetics and I just had enough of their BS.
Would also say is anathema.
We have specific videos on our channel going through each group. We have on
And again, the Protestant understanding of anathema has been wrong from the beginning. You go back to the Augsburg Confession. They do not get anathemas. They do not get. I don't want to call it sarcasm because it's not as if we didn't mean it, but they don't get how unserious we take it. The best example of this is that during the schism, well, before the schism, building up to the schism, there were two bishops who were just anathemizing each other over and over again, and they would anathemize the Pope and they'd anathemize the Metropolitan. Nobody took any of these things seriously. They just ignored it. It isn't until after the Great Schism that then these retroactively became active. And now through the ecumenical councils or through the meetings of these councils, through these synods, through these ecumenical synods, I should say, because then it'll get confusing with the actual ecumenical councils, through these dialogues between the Catholic Church and the Orthodox Catholic Church, they've kind of like threw away the anathemas. They said, they don't really count. They were bad. They were bad theology then. They're bad theology now. We're not going to do the anathemas. That doesn't mean that every single bishop in Orthodoxy has submitted to that change, which is one of the great positives of having a pope, is that once a pope or a magisterium says, this is what we're going to be doing, this is what we're going to be doing. And you don't have that in other faiths. And again, when we get to Trent Horn, he talks about that. And he talks about how he wouldn't hit that so hard anymore. Because right now there's a little problem with the rad trads. So the rad trads are the old schismatics from the old Catholicism. The thing is that they're refusing to leave the church. So they're denying the Pope, but refusing to leave. So I don't. It's like saying it's like saying you're no longer married, but then staying in the house with the person that you're not married to, and nothing's changing. Like you're still doing all the stuff. You're still doing all the stuff, but you're claiming you're not married, and you're not willing to cheat. So you're not even doing that. You're just simply saying, no, we're not married anymore. I wouldn't be married to that person. So you're going to move out? No. I'm actually making sure that half my income goes to her for the rest of my life, voluntarily. It's that kind of thing. So it's like the current schismatics in the rad trad that refuse to be because sedevacantists are just plain old heretics. They refuse to be sedevacantists. So exactly where the Tyler Marshalls of the world stand is precarious and kind of stupid.
Distinctive of Eastern Orthodoxy.
They're Protestant in everything but name.
Anathema that is pronounced during the Feast of Orthodoxy. You can look this up. You can see this too on YouTube in many Orthodox churches, how Protestants are anathematized, and anyone also.
This is true, by the way. What he's saying is correct. But again, we don't take anathemizes. Oh, it's hard to explain. It's a parent grounding their kid. Okay, this is the best way to explain it. And you can really see this really clearly in the Council of Trent, especially pre the anti-Reformation or counter-Reformation. The early part of Trent before it gets brought back after the battle in Trent or near Trent, before a different pope brings it back and canonizes it. The anathemas are meant to scare, intimidate, and correct. They're there to correct the Protestants. They're not supposed to be, the anathemas are not saying, hey, you're damned to hell. They're saying, if you do this, you're going to go to hell. And if you're doing it right now, you're going to end up in hell, but you can get out of it by just confessing and submitting to us and submitting to the Pope. Just submit, and you'll be fine. I don't know. I know. We just said that you're going to hell, but you submit, and you'll be fine. Oh, no, you want to talk about it? Yeah, that's fine. Just come down from Germany and come down to Trent. No, why are you saying you're going to get arrested? You're not going to get arrested. Just come down. Oh, the anathemas. You're worried that the anathemas mean we're going to arrest you because we have some political power, because this is 1550 Europe. No. We're not going to actually arrest you or burn you. We're just talking. We're just saying that's gonna be the punishment. But you come down and talk and we negotiate. You're still not coming. Okay, we're gonna send you out safe passage letters. In the safe passage, I know what you're saying. I get it. You think that we're going to give you the safe passage letter and then we're going to accuse you of breaking the law, and then we're going to get you that way. So it's not a trick. What we're going to do is we're going to give you immunity, and if we arrest you for something, we'll send you right back to Germany, and the German courts can solve the problem. You're still not coming. And then that keeps going for like 5 or 6 sessions. And then they hold over sessions because the Protestants just won't show up to talk to them. So, again, the anathemas have been misunderstood from the beginning, which is why we don't use them anymore, because people just misunderstand them.
It's another thing that's said there. Anyone who doesn't show reverence to holy icons in Eastern Orthodoxy is anathema, used in Galatians. That's accursed. You are cut off from the kingdom.
And by the way, so when I gotta stop chewing ice on mic. When Javier tried to show this, he tried to show it as ecclesial churches can't agree. No, this is the right way to do it, which is they can agree, and they agree that we're heretics, and therefore they're lying to us when they say they accept us, unless they're saying that they weren't always infallible. They've changed, which, yes, we've changed. But apologists don't want to admit that, because apologists are, well, I can't say that currently.
That's the sense in how the word was used. Thankfully, a lot of Orthodox have the spine today to say that that's what it means. Mm-hmm. Whereas a lot of Catholics are like, yeah, maybe it meant that back then, but now it really means you're just, astray. No. In the back.
And again, this is a real disagreement between me and Unfound. I did it again. Me and Found Cause.
In those days, if you're anathema, you're getting executed, and you're also going to hell. So,
again, we gave them rites of passage, and they didn't accept it. That's not our fault. They didn't trust us.
There's a strong verbiage coming from Orthodoxy on those who don't believe in these.
I apologize for if I've ever strawmanned those positions when I was trying to argue against them. And that's why, in my more recent Understanding Denomination series, I tried to represent them fairly once again. I want to go back to being that friendly, ecumenical Protestant YouTuber rather than the argumentative, polemical Protestant YouTuber. All right?
Being fair and being friendly could be interpreted as loving your enemies, right? But I would be careful.
See, and there's another place that I disagree with the Protestant view. I'm calling it the Protestant view because I've heard it through Protestants a lot. So there's a great Orthodox pastor, who has a speaker, who has a video out right now called "True Christians Have No Enemies," because you love your enemies. So therefore, you do everything you can to make the enemy's life better, and to help them find Christ, and to help them be a better person, and to lead by example by being a good Christian, so hopefully they can see the faith through your works. They disagree with that. These two young gentlemen disagree with that. And I think that the Orthodox view is correct here. A true Christian should have no enemies. None. Zero. No enemies. You should be loving. You should be extreme, radical love. That should be your whole job, is forgiveness and love, and preaching the word. And if they reject you, dust off your feet, move on. If they don't reject your message, get them into the church. I mean, that's the whole thing.
What it does not sound like he's calling them enemies. Like, it's one thing to say, I love my enemy, I treat my enemy fairly, I treat my enemy friendly.
See, I don't agree with this take here. I agree with the take that Jesus says. I'm agreeing with Jesus. They're not.
But we know the Bible does tell us to make distinctives, especially from people who claim to be Christians, to make distinctives when they are not, to not even have anything to do with them, right? That's the command for the proto-Gnostics in the Gospels. And
If I don't think I'm ever going to debate them again, but if I ever debate them again, I would want to debate them on this topic specifically, on what those passages means, on what love your neighbor means, and what love your enemy means, and on what it means. What they're talking about here.
epistles is to have nothing to do with people who are trying to don the name of Christ, but actually are liars and deceivers.
What have nothing to do with them means, and who and what they're talking about, and what that instruction means contrasted with the other one. Because that's the problem. That's the problem with a lot of Protestants. They're not both and, they're either or, and that is a big problem. Either or is a big problem in Protestantism. So you have stuff that says, well, you're not saved by works, but you also have stuff that says, if you faith without works is dead. So how can it be both? Right? So initial justification, blah, 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 whatever distinctive you want to have. Not the point. The Bible is written by different people with different perspectives. So harmonizing them and using the big bad word in scholarship right now, using hermeneutics, is necessary, especially if you believe that it's one giant story. You want to use Dan McKellen's word, univocal. But the point is that if you believe the Bible is inspired at all, in any kind of way, you have to find a way to reconcile these seemingly different, contradictory, paradoxical statements. And you can do what Orthodox and Catholics do and call it mystery, or you can do what Protestants do, which is just hammer it out with a sledgehammer and a steamroller and make it fit, which is not good, because then you change the definition and the meaning of words to fit a dogma that was not in existence when this stuff was written. Which is why I prefer the idea that a community is the one who preserved all these oral traditions and then eventually got written down, because that means that there's time for the dogma and theology to develop between the event, the storytelling, and the writing it down. And then the writing it down preserves the dogma and theology that grew with it, with its preservation.
So again, it's one thing to call them out as enemies, but be friendly with them. And it's another thing to call them friends.
Notice I said grow. So that doesn't mean it wasn't present in the beginning. The seed is there, but the seed needs to be developed. It needs to grow.
And that's the line that I would say he is crossing when he says that he wants to be a friendly ecumenical, specifically ecumenical, meaning we are all in the same church, even though we're in different denominations. It's evil. You end up...
I don't think that's evil, One thing, that's what Jesus wants. Jesus wants unity between his entire church, which that includes the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church is the original church. And by the original church, I don't mean the Pope in Rome, the Roman Latin Rite is the only Catholic Church. No, dudes. Again, I'm censoring myself. The original church, the original 12 churches, the original 77 churches. It's 77. Is it 77 or 72? Hold on. I always forget. Oh, let me get the calculator out. Well, let's pretend it's 72. 72 divided by 2, 36. So the original 36 churches are the original 12 churches, or the original 7 churches, however you want to do the math. The point is that once you get to the Patriarchate, once you get to the 5, and once you get to Alexandria and Antioch and Jerusalem and Constantinople and Rome, meaning the city. You have these seas. You have these different churches underneath them. The Catholic Church isn't one church. It's like 27 or 28 different churches all under one umbrella. So the original one true church had 12 popes. And the most prominent pope, the most prominent papa, is going to be Peter. Peter's in charge. And the original argument is whether or not that power, that authority, transfers after he dies. If you believe it didn't transfer, then you're not Catholic. If you believe it did transfer, then you're Catholic. But that doesn't mean that the other churches founded by Andrew, Mark, John are not true part of the one true church. They're all part of the one true church. What we want to do is reunite. The problem with Protestants is that Protestantism is a schism from the branch that is Catholicism. They're a schism from the Roman branch, which is just one rite in the Catholic Church. And they broke off. And then their things broke off. I did the count today, by the way. I think it's like there's 40 breaks in the initial break. There's 40 different breaks. Before we even get, I'm just talking about the reformers and the Protestant revolution here. I'm not talking about the Baptists and the Anabaptists. There's just 40 direct breaks in the Reformation. That's a lot of fracturing, man. I'm not talking about the 40,000 or the 1,000 or whatever stupid fake number is out there. There are 40 unique breaks that form the Protestant Reformation. 40, man. 40. Again, that's not including Anabaptists. That's not including Baptists. That's not including Pentecostal. That's not including any of that. Okay, I'm just talking about the core breaks. That's a lot.
He sees a lot of his audience convert because he is attracting a lot of people who don't believe it's a gospel level issue until they convert. And then they convert, and suddenly they're in the Church of Rome, and they suddenly know, the Church teaches the Roman.
Again, this distinctive of Rome doesn't make any sense. There's the Malachite rite. There's the old Latin rite. There's the High Mass. There's the Low Mass. There's the Novus Ordo. There's the Latin, the New Latin, the new. I think it's like two new Latin rite, which is the one that they're fighting for in the Rad Trad community. There's all this stuff. Like it's. Oh. Look up sees and rights. Sees as in S-E-E, not S-E-A or S-A-E, but sees. And look at rights in the Catholic Church and look at how many churches. Just look it up. How many churches are in the Catholic Church? Not how many parishes, how many churches. And they each get to keep their own saints and their own rites and their own rituals, their own rubrics. They just have to add they're under the Pope.
Protestantism is a gospel level issue. Weird, Like, shouldn't if they think it's a gospel level issue, it may be one. Maybe, like when we stop, right? That's troubling.
Consider them to be my brothers in Christ. But when I saw more and more people abandon Protestantism, I started to get.
Hey, look. In my years doing this, I've brought over some theists and some anti-theists, some atheists, some agnostics, and others into the Catholic Church. And those that I didn't bring into the Catholic Church, I at least brought them to theism or brought them to Christianity or something like that. I've done the work. if I was having the opposite effect, if there were Catholics who were watching my channel and they were becoming atheists, yeah, I'd stop what I was doing too. He is saying, with his massive audience, he's seeing more people convert to a faith he is not part of and that he is fighting against. So he wants to stop fighting against it because he thinks he's not doing a good job. I think that's a fair observation. Yes, I'm talking to atheists, but that's by design. I want to talk to atheists. I want to engage with atheists. I'm not trying to trick them. I want to be their friend. I want to get to know them. I want to know what their real complaints are. And if it's something that I can answer, I want to answer. And if it's something I can't answer, I can point them to better resources. That's fair. If he doesn't want to do that kind of work because he's found that his words are backfiring because he's doing apologetics, which is a lie, which is rhetoric, propaganda, and salesmanship, and he doesn't have salesmanship skills, regardless of his popularity, yeah, he doesn't want to do it. That's fair. I don't think that's wrong of him or something that he should be ashamed of or something that I realize that you guys have a much broader view on this, but I don't think that's the specific thing you guys should be attacking because if he's bad at it and he's seeing the results, he's seeing the bad fruits in his harvesting. Yeah, stop. I mean, yeah, that's very mature, to be very honest.
Get concerned, so I started making videos defending Protestantism and criticizing Catholicism and Orthodoxy. But that didn't really seem to work. No matter how many debates I did or videos I made defending Protestantism, it didn't really stop anyone from converting. I don't think I kept very many people Protestant. So I never intended to be a Protestant apologist, but it just sort of happened. It just sort of happened because of the frustration I felt with so many people leaving Protestantism and converting
We're going to go 4 more minutes, and then we're going to do a little bit of the Trent Horn stuff, and then we're going to call it a night.
Catholicism and Orthodoxy.
Unless I can remember the other video I wanted to do.
Very good at attacking Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy, and therefore he's going to stop. Again, fair enough, right? If it's not the focus of your video, but our problem is that it probably wasn't a good enough attack because you don't even think they're non-Christians. You really lose the whole heat of the argument if you won't, be honest and say that it is the gospel.
So I think you're Christians. I think as long as you had a valid baptism, you're a Christian. And me and you, literally, we've debated each other. We disagree with each other with plenty of heat. So I don't think it's fair to put on him, oh, well, you don't think that Catholics aren't Christians, so therefore you're the problem. No, Matt Whitman thinks Catholics are Christians, and Matt Whitman, when you ask his opinion on Catholicism, he really doesn't like it. For all of his travels, for all of his ecumenical outreach, he really doesn't like Catholicism, which is sad and disappointing for me because I really like Matt Whitman. I was kind of hoping he'd become Catholic at some point. So, yeah, no, there is nothing wrong with being ecumenical, especially within the body of Christ. It's one thing to have someone say that Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or Muslims are in the body of Christ. I think that's wrong. I don't think that's okay to say. I don't think they're Christian. It's very different to say, oh, Hindus and Buddhists are also. No, that's a mistake to say. You can say, yeah, there are exceptions. Yes, God can find a way. God can save anyone that he wants to save. God can make assumptions as he wants. He's, we're bound by his rules. He's not bound by our rules. That's all fine. But to say that someone who's worshiping Krishna or Shiva or is dedicated to Ishtar or Aphrodite or Zeus is worshiping God. No, obviously we got a fundamental problem here. But people who are affirming the Trinity, people who are affirming Christ, who are affirming salvation, who are affirming God's forgiveness, who are affirming one true God, it's okay to call them Christians. Even if they have a vastly different view of theology than you, even if they have a vastly different practice than you, even if they're from a different denomination than you, it's fine. You too are a Christian. I'm a Christian. Redeemed Zoomers are Christian. All of us are Christians. I'm hoping all of us get to heaven. So I don't see a problem with that because I can still argue with Redeemed Zoomer. I can still argue with you all. And it doesn't take away any of the heat just because I'm willing to talk and because I hope that all of us are going to heaven. You know, B.S. Lewis, who's on my channel a lot, although recently he hasn't been here as often, he's an anti-theist. My fear is that he's going to go to hell. He doesn't fear that because he doesn't believe in hell. But I'm worried about his soul. So I'm going to keep talking to him because I want him to go to heaven. I can't make it happen. I'm not God. But I like him, and I care about him, and I want what's best for him. Garmania. I love Garmania. I love that man as if he was my friend in real life, even though we only know each other through YouTube. And if he called me up tomorrow saying if he had a problem, I'd drop everything and I'd go help him in real life. But as long as he denies God and he denies Jesus, we all know where he's going. Now, he doesn't believe in hell, so he doesn't care. And I'm not going to badger him and try to get him to believe something that he thinks is absurd so I can scare him into a false belief that wouldn't save him anyway. False belief is not true belief. Someone worshiping God because they're scared of what you might do to them is not worshiping God. Someone who's scared that of a consequence that they don't even truly believe in is not really worshiping God. All you're doing is threatening them. You're mentally abusing them. You're mentally attacking them. You're psychologically damaging them to force them into a belief they don't really hold. And that is wrong. And that will not save them. You can't force someone to believe something they don't believe. You can only get them to verbally consent and maybe physically consent outwardly. But you can't change their inward belief. So no matter how many false confessions you get from them, they never believe in God. So therefore you saved nothing, except maybe you've condemned your own soul by doing this. That's it. So me and you probably have a much more stronger difference of opinion on that than we do on whether or not Jesus is God. Because we both believe Jesus is God. We both believe he died for our sins. We both believe that he's the one true way. So, all right, that is time. That is time. Let's go one more minute just so we can say we did 20 of theirs, and then we'll go to Trent Horn.
Level issue.
I mean, now thinking about it in that way, if someone says, I want to be Lutheran, I don't think I would put too much of a fight for them.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Because I don't consider them heretics.
Mm-hmm. And Redeemed Zoomer and our listeners should realize that the heat of Roman Catholic apologetics, like there are plenty of Roman Catholics who are out there like sleeping around and doing drugs, whatever else. Those people are not apologists. They aren't converting people en masse. The people who are converting people to Roman Catholicism or Nestorianism or whatever, insert your non-Christian church, they are bringing heat. They're saying you need to be Roman Catholic. We have the holy tradition. We have the Pope. We have authority. We are manly traditionalists, and we believe that your wife should stay. You know, those are the kind of people that are converting. They bring heat. They bring controversial rhetoric. Like that's what's converting young men who listen to Redeemed Zoomer, young men on mass, however big that mass is, are making distinctives, right?
Okay, very good there. Let's. I'm gonna pause this for a second because I got to sneeze. Okay, so. Let's go to Trent Horn real quick. We'll do some Pints with the Quintus Trent Horn, and then we'll call it a night. Like I said, unless I can remember what that third video was. Pints with the Quintus. I don't like that he re-put Matt Fradd up there. I think he should go back to being Pints with the Quintus, and I think he should go back to having multiple people on. My favorite part of his show is when it's not him and it's the monks from the Thomistic Institute. those guys. Okay. Let's see. Where's Trenti? El Trento Magno. Yeah, they're monetizable. Jerks. Okay, I'm just making sure I got some.
Of progressive Catholicism, where it hurts people, is when it makes the additional problem.
Oh man, they have much
Muslims or something. I mean, they would want them to be converted as well, but it seems like a lot of their energy is
Yeah.
spent talking about the glories of the Latin Mass and returning to tradition, and certainly there's merit in that.
Yeah.
But
And I would say, okay, I'm not sure what you mean by that, or if that's a bad thing. I'll let you have whatever term you want. And if there's other things you want to focus on, that's fine. But I do find it interesting when you think, who are the speakers, writers, online media personalities who have brought the most number of people into the faith, introduced them to the Catholic faith? They're pretty normie. And there's nothing
I don't like that he's using normie and that he's using it incorrectly. I'm just going to be really blunt. That's
yes.
So the error of progressive Catholicism, where it hurts people, is when it makes the forbidden permissible, where it leads you down the line. This isn't that bad. Voting
care
pro-choice
about that. Where's
latitude to choose that in the different states of life and how they do this. And so the Protestants in the early 20th century wanted to respond to that, and there was a multi-volume. You have to understand that what the church teaches comes in varying levels.
Can't all agree on anything, and now come over here and it's all very clear, but it, in one sense, doesn't seem clear at all. Can't all agree on anything, and now come over here, people who are verging into fundamentalism, but I certainly see how it just winds people up.
So Matt Fred actually brings up a bunch of really great questions in this interview. So if you haven't watched it because of how long it is and how diatribe it is, especially with Trent Horn's answers, I would go back and watch it on 1.5 speed or maybe 1.25 speed just for Matt Fred's questions. Trent Horn's responses aren't that great. There's like one or two that are interesting, but Matt Fred's questions show that he's really in a kind of a dark place, or kind of a really truly questioning place of his faith, which is interesting to see.
Up and makes them unhappy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there is a fine line to walk between Pope bashing and Pope splaining. And sometimes it can be this, where I said, hey, the Pope didn't say this. That's a complete misinterpretation. That is not a fair interpretation. It's very confusing. Yeah. I've been critical of Pope Francis on certain...
I don't think Pope Francis is confusing at all. I just think you don't like what he's saying.
Prudential judgments he's made on economics, or in my recent episode on green energy. Like, I want to really listen to the Pope and his judgments and give them his prudential judgments the level of respect they deserve. But at the same time, I have to follow my own conscience and rational mind.
Yeah, but then he later on in this interview, he then says, but you have to follow the prudential judgments. So which one is it, Trent? Which one is it?
Try to discern what are you suggesting?
Pope bashing and Pope splaining seek to do that. Right. So the Pope bashing is, he's wrong. Here's what the truth is. Let's stick to this and not listen to him. Or he might not even be the Pope. That's sort of attempts to stabilize us.
Well, I think also,
but then on the Pope splaining, you have the same thing happening. Where it's like, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't feel destabilized.
Yeah.
And it's only the trads or whoever who are making you feel that way.
Yeah, no, you should be honest that life is just messy. And so the way we understand the world, different evidences and ways of understanding things are going to be messy in some cases. Not always messy. Sometimes it's actually quite clear.
By the way, I'm not a Pope splainer in any kind of way. I've disagreed with popes before. I'll disagree with popes again. I just don't disagree with the current Pope. So there is to it. Yeah, I think I can't even think of something he said that I disagree with.
And we just need to recognize that.
But see, this is why a lot of people became Catholic, Trent. They thought that it would no longer be messy. And that's what...
But see, now I wanted to play this part here. This is specifically for B.S. Lewis and Garmania, actually. Because they've asked this question, and apologists have been really... I said I was going to cuss on this stream, so really crappy about not answering this directly. Which is, they lied. They were using salesman tactics, and they lied. And they said, hey, this isn't an issue in the Catholic Church because we all agree. No, we don't all agree. And that lie is coming back to haunt them. They shouldn't have lied. This is why you shouldn't listen to apologists, because they're liars and because they're selling you a product. They want you to buy their books. They want you to send money to their apostolate, not to the church, or to them. And they want you to become a member of the thing that they believe in because it helps them feel like they made the right choice.
Yeah, no, you should be honest that life is just messy. And so the way we understand the world, different evidences and ways of understanding things are going to be messy in some cases. Not always messy. Sometimes it's actually quite clear. And we just need to recognize
They are
that.
convinced that they're right, even if that means that they've convinced themselves or someone else convinced them. You know what that kind of confidence is? Con, as in con men.
But see, this is why a lot of people became Catholics, right? They thought that it would no longer be messy.
And that's why you shouldn't have lied to them and told them that. You shouldn't have told them it wasn't messy. You shouldn't have told them there's 100,000, 10,000 denominations in Protestantism when you know that's not true. You shouldn't have said there's, no disagreement in the Catholic Church. You shouldn't have said those lies. A lot of the stuff that Found Cause is arguing against are lies that you all said in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. And they're fighting against a false version of Catholicism that never existed, except for in the minds of the people who listen to apologists.
What we told them. We kept saying, look how many thousands of Protestant denominations there are. They can't all agree on anything. And now come over here and it's all very clear, but it, in one sense, doesn't seem clear at all.
Well, I think
Thank you for making my argument from the last 3 years, Matt. Even though my channel has suffered for me saying it, and my subscribers and everything else has suffered for me saying it. But you get to say it, and you're a hero. I say it, and I'm the villain.
that's why I've tried very hard, and I certainly apologize if in the past or earlier in my apologetic career I may have oversold certain things. I mean, you can always remember, like, how did you present things 10 years ago versus now, and growing as a witness, as someone who evangelizes.
10-year-old talks.
You know what the worst part is? So, like, I've listened to audio tapes from Tim Staples and Jimmy Akin from like 1995 or like 1997, and it's like when they were at this point in my career, whatever that means.
Yeah.
And like Jimmy will say, like, "Ooh, let's just put that away." It's kind of nice. You got to cut your teeth on an audio cassette, whereas like I'll do stuff and it's just it's on the internet forever. But as G.K. Chesterton once said, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Yeah. So I think though
I appreciate that Trent is being honest here, but again, he's in his mind, he's in a safe environment. He's talking to a friend, so.
try very hard to say, one, I try not to even say the thousands of denominations. I'd say there's just far too many. But I've also, the language I use is Protestantism leads to disagreements on fundamental issues of great importance. And we don't have that similar kind of disagreement in Catholicism.
Or you could just drop that line of argumentation altogether and talk about the things that matter. Instead of trying to say, look at how terrible they are, because they can always point the finger back. It's like there was some wise man, great teacher, I don't know, this dude in a white robe. I don't know why he was wearing white. Anyway, he said something, don't point out the speck in your neighbor's eye when there's a log in your own. I don't know, maybe you heard about the guy named Jesus.
Like, you might have disagreement about the prudence of doing a 10-second blessing for a same-sex couple that comes up to a priest at a pilgrimage or something like that. Clearly, that one was abused easily. If you get it photographed in the New York Times, that ain't spontaneous. But, and this is what I've said when I dialogue with James White a while back, saying that even in the absolute most liberal Catholic parish, you are not going to give two men or two women the sacrament of matrimony. And if a priest did that, the bishop is going to step in. Like, that is not going to happen. But in many Protestant denominations, you have a liberal wing that certainly is doing something like that. That there is doctrine.
The problem with saying this is that the moment one German priest does it, you're now a liar, and you've now, in the eyes of the Protestant, condemned the whole church. You've falsified the faith with your analogy.
Uniformity among
With your hypothetical, you falsified the future faith.
among Catholics on the essential issues. Albeit, though, there's going to be a fair number of people who call themselves Catholic who don't assent to that. But at least we can say, hey, there's an official teaching you're in contradiction to.
Man, have you checked out Exodus 90?
Man, have you checked out not listening to Matt Fradd? Oh, sorry.
You know, I don't know if I can sign on to this, but weighing the balance of evidence of everything else, saying, well, if this is Christ's church, maybe I don't fully understand this issue. And I'm going to have to assent to that and see that this is not something that it should be practically non-existent.
He says assent, but I say submit. I submit to the church. I submit to the rulings of the Catholic Church, even to the things that I don't understand or I don't agree with. It's that easy. I don't need to play the games that Trent Horn has to play. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm a sinner. I admit I'm a sinner. I don't pretend otherwise. I'm not pretending to be a nice guy. I'm not pretending to be a good guy. I make sacrifices for people that I care about, and I even help out people that I really don't like. But I still sin.
Its use, for example. So that was one example there, and I'm hoping to do an episode soon. I know a lot of people kind of get in debates about that issue, but I think we can look at the development of the church's teaching on capital punishment really similar to the development of the teaching on something like slavery, for example. I think a lot of people, when they try to do apologetics on that issue, they really start to whitewash.
Really?
I want apologetics to die. I want the modern expression of apologetics to die. I don't have a problem with defending the faith. Defending the faith is great. I love Tertullian, except for one of his books, the book that bored me that I had to move on from. But I love Tertullian. I love Origen. I don't have a problem with intellectual curiosity. I don't have a problem with having a regular defense, with having a ready defense of your beliefs. Fine, that's good. Knowing the Bible enough to be able to defend the Bible, that's great. Studying scholarship so you know what the state of play is, so that way you're not lying or misrepresenting what the current state of knowledge is on these things. Excellent. Using propaganda, rhetoric, logic tricks, language tricks, word games, and salesmanship and selling tactics to promote and promulgate and proselytize a version of Christianity. Now we got a problem. There's only one true church. There's only one true Christianity. If they're not with us, if they're not against us, they're with us. So as long as you're promoting Christ and you're promoting forgiveness, you're fine. When you're promoting Trent Hornyism, that wasn't good. Sorry. When you're promoting Catholic Answersism, when you're promoting, and I love Jimmy Akin-ism, when you're promoting Scott Hahn-ism, that's not Catholicism. That's one man's interpretation of the faith and the dogmatic rules. The church is a consensus. It is one body with all of its members, not just the Pope, but the elderliest old lady and the tiniest baby all have a voice in the church, and they all sing to God the Father through Christ. One voice, one song, and if someone's out of tune or out of key, they're out. We're building up the body of Christ. And you're constantly forgiving because you're constantly bringing that person back into the body. Oops, they messed up. Okay, bring them back in. Oops, they messed up. Oops, we bring them back in. But they have to be purified every single time. And we're going to keep doing it, keep going. Until they're dead, until they're in heaven. And then they can't mess up no more. That's what we're doing. But if you make it Trent Horn's interpretation that has to be right, if you make Catholic Answers Christianity that has to be right, which is how it's been in the U.S. for a while now, you're going to get the Tyler Marshalls and the Timothy Gordons. You are. If you're orthodoxy and you have this issue, you're going to get the J. Dyers. This is a real problem. And the fact that you can't acknowledge it, even as you're confessing your sins to your friend on a podcast that people are going to see, is a problem. And that's why I think apologetics needs to die. Apologetics was suppressed for a long time because of exactly the problem that is happening now. And back in the day, I was upset when I found out that apologetics used to be suppressed in the Catholic Church. Now, in my current state, based on the current state of apologetics, and my current understanding based on the current state of apologetics, I get it. I get it why you only want certain people doing apologetics. I get it.
Yes. For example, I mean, anybody who says, well, obviously capital punishment is something the state can do now. I mean, look what the Bible says. Well, that's like in the 19th century, people argued, obviously slavery is permissible. Look what the Bible says. In the 19th century, when people were arguing about slavery in the United States, especially among evangelicals, well, there was a book by, I think it was Mark Knoll. I think it was something like Slavery and the Theological Crisis of the American South. That's titled like that. Because the idea was, we're saying slavery is wrong, and the people who were arguing for slavery in the 19th century, they would win a lot of those Bible debates. When it was just slinging proof text back and forward, they would go, if slavery is so wrong, why does Paul say slaves be obedient to your masters? Even if they're, First, Second Peter's, even if they malign you or are cruel to you. Like, where does the Bible ever say Christians must release all their slaves? And they were kind of winning in a lot of these just straight up proof text debates. Whereas Christians had to readapt their argument to argue more from, no, the Bible's very clear. Everyone's made in the image and likeness of God. There's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free. They were arguing more from principles being applied than just slinging proof texts. Same if you go back and look in the church's history.
And that's the problem with biblical scholarship when they separate all the texts out and they have it all be independent texts without any collectiveness. You need the collectiveness, otherwise you don't have the themes pop out.
After the New Testament, you have voices condemning owning too many slaves.
There's a reason why they were picked.
And very few, maybe St. Gregory of Nyssa, kind of a lone voice for...
Because altogether it comes up with the theology that we need.
Arguing for strict abolitionism.
And that's the inspiration also, is which books go in is also inspired.
But the development of the church's teaching, reaching the need to abolish slavery, that was something that took time for people to see. And so I'm hoping to address this more, and this may be a more in-depth and intricate video. I'm spoiling it now here, because I know people will make different objections. They'll try to say, well, the church never said slavery was a good thing. It just tolerated this institution. Well, you had church fathers saying that this was something that's part of the natural order, arguing natural law from Aristotle, or divine punishments in some cases, if someone's a slave or not. It gets a bit messy. Now, I do think, though, and I did a debate recently on slavery, biblical slavery. It was actually kind of fun. It was a tag team, Gavin Ortland and I versus two atheists. So super fun.
Kip Davis and Joshua Bowman, both of whom are friends. Well, my channel's friends with theirs. I don't know if they're friends of my channel, but I'm friends with their channel. Does that make any sense? I hope they're friends of my channel. I don't know.
It's like, maybe like the two adversaries in a comic book, just like
pair up.
I think we're going to need each other for this one. I don't know why.
But our channel is friends with them. So if you're watching me, you should be watching them.
I'd love to have a Batman voice if that were the case, but it was really fun. It was great because Gavin's a smart guy. So it was a great engagement with them on that subject. And I think Gavin and I agree that the historical record is a bit messy, but we really pushed in that debate. The abolition of slavery was a unique thing from Christianity. You had slavery in every culture around the world. It was ubiquitous. And even our atheist interlocutor admitted that the Christian teaching of being made in the image and likeness of God universally is unique to the Bible and unique to Christianity. So for example, when the Bible says man and woman is made in the image and likeness of God, in the ancient world, there was a proverb that said, the king is made in the image of God and man is his shadow. So the idea in the ancient world was the only humans in the image of God were Pharaoh, were the king. He's in the image of God, not you. You're a peasant. You're nobody. You're the faint shadow of God. But Christianity turned it on its head to say, no, we're all made in the image of God. And in the ancient world,
as the trajectory might change somewhat, and how do we discern whether maybe these three popes have just misunderstood the scriptures and the next pope will reverse that? And then how are we not just in the same place as our Protestant friends?
Well, I think we have to understand the number of those who are saved.
Like I said, Matt Fratt's asking the good questions. I might not like his opinions on things, but man, does he ask great questions. It's probably why his channel's way more popular than mine.
For example, you'd have to...
That and the Catholic Illuminati who run YouTube. Watch my shorts and my comedy satire for more.
Ask the question. And I think when it comes to understanding what any church teaching is, we have to understand it's a deeper subject. That's why I'm really grateful my colleague Jimmy Aiken wrote the book Teaching with Authority. So understand teaching, assent of the mind and will. So you are obliged to believe these teachings. So the question is, when
notice that what he's saying though is contradicting what he said earlier, which is a problem. But
are you like in a state of sin, for example?
I see.
Be receptive,
Yep.
pray, and focus on personal holiness and ask God to help you if there are church teachings that you're really grappling with.
All right, so now I hear what you're saying, that if you're grappling with something that's part of the ordinary magisterium, you can't seem to accept it, but at the same time, you're not rejecting it.
Yeah.
And you're saying that's not a sin necessarily. But isn't that true of anything?
FYI, though, who cares what Trent Horn is saying, though, because he's not the magisterium, he's not the Pope. He has no power here. He has no authority to say what he's saying. And just make it a discussion between friends. Whatever.
Even those truths that have been defined dogmatically? Like, is it a sin if someone says, I see that the church teaches that Mary was assumed into heaven. I'm really having a trouble accepting that. Surely that
I think there's a difference there. Cardinal Henry Newman would say that 10,000 difficulties don't make a single doubt. So I think that some people, it goes beyond grappling to say, personally, I can't see this. Like personally, I'm not able to accept that. Now, does that lead you into sin? Is the question. Does it lead you into grave sin, especially? That's where I would say that at the bare.
So at first, when he's talking about this, again, I've already watched this. At first, when he's talking about this, I'm on his side on this part, and then he goes somewhere. I don't know if we're going to watch the whole thing, but if we get there, he goes somewhere in this part of the discussion that I disagree with. So we'll see. We'll see if we get there, and if we do, I'll highlight it.
Our minimum, with like a dogma of the faith, a person would have to say, "Well, I'm going to make a decision of the will. Yes, Christ is truly present in the Eucharist. It's not merely a symbol. I have a hard time really understanding how that is, but I'm just going to believe that, even though I can't even explain to you how."
So the problem is that he also applies this method to the non-infallible teachings, which that's just problematic. And then because he earlier, and I kind of skipped over this when he's talking about the radical traditionalists that he calls the Catholic fundamentalists. But again, I don't like that switching of the terminology because they're two very different things. Fundamentalists, evangelical and Protestant fundamentalism versus Catholic radical traditionalists. These are opposing parties. These are not the same people. And I think it's a mistake for him to try to lump them together because that just gives them more strength if they ever do unite. But let's not talk about that. The problem here is the way that he's doing this. Not only is it hypocritical and ironic, but it's also, what do you then do with the Council of Trent and with the Catechism of Trent? Do you say that those teachings are abrogated? Do you do the Muslim thing? So what do you do with councils that have been recognized as being authoritative, but now some of their rulings are outside of that? Do we say that the council that ruled on it being authoritative was wrong as well? Do you see what I'm saying? Like the council, the synod, or the group, whatever, that ruled it as being authoritative was wrong, or that it was only to be provincial, even though at the time they were using universal language. These are problems that many Protestants have pointed out. Now, me, being a weirdo, I go and actually read the material, and when you read the material, you're like, oh, that's providential, oh, that's, this is that. But the majority of the people in the world don't go and read this stuff. I am very weird for the fact that I own over, I'm going to say 300 books in ancient Greek and ancient Latin. That is weird. It's weird that I have books that have two languages in them, and one of them is ancient and a dead language, and I read them for fun. That's not something most people do. So the people who are enough like me to want to read ecumenical and non-ecumenical council rulings is very few, especially people without a doctorate or a master's or without a bachelor's who want to do that, who want to spend. When did I start reading all this stuff? When I was like 18, 15, maybe, if you want to talk about me starting to read the Iliad, let's say 15, even though I think it was a little bit older, but let's say 15. So from 15 to 44, I've been reading ancient texts with very few breaks in between to read some modern stuff. And I don't have a master's or a doctorate. I'm doing this for fun, and I'm spending thousands of dollars every year on very expensive books that are not easy to get. Even with Amazon, they're not easy to get. It's easier to find a bad, older translation in CreateSpace that you're not even sure is a legit translation than it is to actually find a legit, trustworthy, published, reviewed version of a text. And yet, you want people to just kind of know. It doesn't work, Trent. It just doesn't work. We're not living in a time where this stuff is cut off from people. This stuff is out there. And if someone cares enough, they're going to read. And if you're lying or you're misrepresenting what the information says, like Gavin has done, like Heschmeyer has done, you're going to lose converts. You're going to lose people from the faith. It's the problem with Protestants and evolution. The moment you find out evolution is true and you force the issue where if evolution is true, Christianity is false, you just lost a believer. You just lost a Christian. If it's Catholicism where, evolution is true, you don't have to believe it, but if you believe it, you're welcome to still be a Catholic. But if you don't believe it, we're not going to kick you out either. You can still be a Catholic. But yeah, we pretty much affirm that it's true. We don't know, but we affirm it because we trust the science and we think it's true. Our scientists and our priests are the ones helping the study of the stuff, and they all think it's true, so we think it's true, and it's okay. And if you don't, that's fine too. That's a very different attitude than, well, you gotta submit an assent. Yeah, you gotta submit an assent to the core doctrine, to the essential doctrines. Yeah, the dogma is true. The interpretation that's dogmatically ruled on is true. But the non-essentials, the non-infallible, the non-inspired stuff, you can't put it on people that they have to accept everything, when put together, is contradictory. As someone who studied Taoism, I can handle paradox. As someone who loves Greek mysticism, I can handle mystery. But dude, you can't expect a normal person who doesn't read the kind of stuff that I read, the kind of stuff that you read, to submit to this kind of stuff. Not once the paradox is exposed. And you know better. And I think that's why the few times you are dishonest, that's why you're dishonest. It's because you'd rather save someone with a lie than lose them with the truth. And I think that's a problem. Now, I'm not accusing you directly of that because I see that very rarely with you. But I see it a lot with Protestant apologists.
How it is.
Yeah.
I just know that is. I'm just going to say, yeah, that is the case. Want me to explain it? I really can't.
I'm trying to figure out what the distinction is between non-sinful grappling and sinful grappling, because in both instances, you're not accepting something, right?
Yeah, I think there's gonna be, this might almost be like a fallacy of the beard too, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, when does stubble become a beard? Good nature.
Got it.
I got it. There you go.
Champ. Where we're afraid, and we then kind of flee the normies at our parish that occasionally bust out that God
Hey, BS, I gave you a huge shout out earlier in the show. I don't know when you're watching, if you're watching currently or you're watching earlier. But if you're watching earlier, I gave you a huge I love you, dude. I gave you I'm worried about his soul and I care, but I wouldn't convert him forcefully because that's not true conversion. Blah, blah, blah. You can't violate his free will, even if he doesn't believe he has free will. Yeah, I gave you a huge slobbering kiss all over this show.
Godforsaken guitar, and we
Gather
try to
us
find
in.
we try to find increasingly niche places to worship. And I see this a lot, right? I mean, you think of the journey of someone who's like the charismatic Catholic who gets over that and then kind of disparages that and sees a lot of the errors in that, and then goes to like a regular Novus Ordo, but then gets sick of the life teen stuff which we had in the 90s, right? And then goes to a Novus Ordo parish that doesn't have it.
Our God is an awesome God,
and then he
reigns.
goes to the trad church, and then he goes to Orthodoxy. But I bet you within 5 minutes from now, you are going to see people getting kind of tired of Orthodoxy, and so now we're going Coptic, right? And then we're
But Matt, the problem is that shows a lack of, I want to say stick-to-itedness, but there's a better word. It shows a lack of endurance, and it shows a lack of commitment. And I'm going to sneeze again. It shows a lack of integrity. If you're going to be Catholic, you have to be Catholic. If you're going to be Protestant, you got to be Protestant. That's why I respect what Found Cause did in their video and why I disrespect what Javier Paremo did in his video.
go into like the nichest thing we can find.
Ethiopic Tawahedo Orthodoxy.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah,
You're smarter than me. Tell me what I'm trying to say.
I see what you're saying. If someone is seeking,
well, it's not just someone. I just feel like this is like this.
Or there's people.
There's this thing within the church where we
Hunger.
are doing that. People are doing that.
Yeah.
Like in droves, we're doing that. Like we're leaving.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Alexa, Echo, turn on Lap. Echo, turn on library.
I don't know how to set library to that setting.
Echo, turn on light. Thank you. No, so that's the problem with false conversion. If you have someone convert out of fear and out of a false Christ and out of a false religion and a false interpretation of the Bible, they're always going to be seeking that sweet, better thing that you promised, because that's not the real church. By promising them no confusion and easy answers and easy believism in the 90s, you now have people leaving the Catholic Church in the 2000s because you lied to them to get them in. And the moment they find out that, hey, the Bible doesn't actually say that, the moment they find out, hey, slavery, that was a thing, yeah, they're going to leave. Because you lied to them to get them in. Lying to them to get them in is not converting them. It's just lying.
Places to find and we're not always wrong to do that either. Like I wouldn't want to stay in a parish with a sloppy homily and terrible music with my children here.
It's not the point of the Mass. That's not the point of church. So yes, you stay. You stay. And you endure, or your faith isn't true. If your faith can be broken by someone not singing well, you don't have good faith. You don't have true faith. That's the whole point of Nietzsche. You want to know why I keep Nietzsche here? Because I was on the verge of losing my faith, and then I read Nietzsche. And that made me stay a Christian and helped me still believe in God for the 20-some years or 15-some years I was away from the Catholic Church. Nietzsche saved my faith because in one of his best books, he says, if I can get you with word games and tricks that I'm telling you are tricks to doubt your faith, then you never had true faith to begin with. And I was like, bingo. If someone not singing well, if some priest having a bad homily style can get you to want to leave the church, you don't have true faith because you're not there for Christ. You're there for a good sermon.
Yeah, like I want them to have an experience of the sacred. I know that what I'm saying is accurate. I'm just not good at saying it. I can't seem to articulate it well.
If not having Latin, the Mass isn't even for you, man. The Mass is for God. The priest sacrifices to God. That's why priests used to face the altar and not the people, because the priest is no more important than the people. He's one of the people. We are a royal priesthood. Yes, he's higher on the ranking than us on the hierarchy, but he, like us, is a servant of God, is a slave of God. That's why in the old Latin Mass, you face the altar. That's why they're not facing the public, because he's not talking to us. He's talking to God and reminding God of everything that God's done for us. That's what it is. The Mass is not for us, it's for God. That's how it's always been. It's Protestants that turned that around with the Reformation, and then we copied them after Vatican II. And I think it's a good thing because I like being preached to be honest. To be honest, I like it. I like the words coming to my face. But that's not the point of the Mass. The Mass, the whole point is the sacrifice that goes to God, is returning Jesus to himself. The representation of Christ to the Father.
Well,
No, I see what you're saying. At least as a phenomena of observing, there's a desire.
like how many people are who have just left Catholicism for Orthodoxy because they had great curb appeal on YouTube are going to get kind of tired of that and then go even niche into something that they've decided is now the real church.
None of that matters. What matters is God and what God commands us to do and requests of us to do. We go to church not because the Pope tells us to go to church, but because God commanded us to keep the Sabbath holy. And then we are celebrating Christ's sacrifice. And we go to daily Mass because we want to celebrate Christ's sacrifice on a daily basis. But because God asks us to, and because the Didache tells us to, and because the authority of the church says we're supposed to, that's why we go. We're not going for our personal edification. If you're going for your personal edification, you're now a Protestant. That is not the purpose of church. The purpose of church is not to cheerlead you and make you feel good about yourself. The purpose of church is to worship God. That's it. End of story.
Church. Until that doesn't do it for them anymore, and they just end up in their garage with a priest who celebrates Holy Mass or liturgy.
Yeah, or you end up at a monastery where you and 6 other people are the only
Yes.
true members of the church
Yes.
left on the earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, that's also a degradation of everyone who's doing the hermit thing, who's in a hermitage, or someone who's in a monastery, someone who's a monk. I don't like this wine of Trent's, and I don't like this wine of Matt's. I think it's a wine, and I think it misses the point of the religion, and it misses the point of the faith. God forgave you. Now follow him, which means here are the commands. Here's what he wants you to do. Love yourself, love your neighbor, love your enemy, love God above all. How do you do that? Well, you love God. You're going to go to church. You're going to worship him. How do you love your neighbor? You take care of them. How do you love your enemy? You help them. You care for them. You forgive them. These are the basics. And if you're asking the questions that you're asking and you're looking for the answers that you're looking for, you're asking the right question, but you're looking for the Protestant answer. You're looking for the wrong answer. It's not about what Mass makes you feel good. It's not about what church service is the most edifying. You're there to worship God and God alone. And for 1 hour or 4 hours, if you're going to an Orthodox Mass, to go 4 hours without sinning. Give what little time you can to God directly. For 4 hours, for 5 hours, for 1 hour, for 30 minutes. Don't sin and be in heaven. Be in heaven for 1 hour. That's it.
Meanwhile, you got people that I know and you know who are just like salt of the earth people who go to their little Novus Ordo every day and they're faithful to their daily rosary and they say their prayers and they love their wife.
Again, daily rosary has nothing to do with Christianity, nothing to do with Catholicism, nothing to do with religion. That's a devotion. I'm glad they're doing it. But you know what you should be encouraging them to do? The liturgy of the hours, the actual official prayer of the church.
And they're speeding into the kingdom of heaven while the rest of us are involved in this search for the exotic.
Then that just means your faith isn't real. If your faith is about you, you don't have faith in God, you have faith in yourself.
Yeah, I think a common theme, what I've been sharing with you in our chat, is finding that golden mean between the two extremes. So I think there's an extreme between having reverence for liturgy and a desire for faithful, authentic worship of God, and a kind of liturgical snobbiness of looking down on, there's some people would look down on a very, maybe a rural or cultural expression of the Novus Ordo that's a little cheesy. Like I remember when I visited a friend who was on, a lot of this is about drawing attention to you. That's what makes me roll my eyes in the back of my head. But if it's something where the person is within the appropriate liturgical rubrics, and this is just...
We're going to go 15 more minutes, guys.
How they are expressing a really authentic love for God. And it's within the rubrics, within the rules. I want to say, that's good. I want to lift that up, even if it's not my cup of tea.
Right.
And find the good in that.
That's really helpful. Has there been a time during your apologetics career, to use that word loosely, where you've encountered something that's made
I don't
you
understand why they keep
kind
saying...
of question Catholicism?
Why they keep doing career in quotes. Yeah, he's rich off of apologetics. That's a career. He's getting paid to do it. It's a career.
Maybe you made the wrong choice back in high school. Maybe it was, and now you're stuck here and you've got this kind of fidelity to Catholicism. You get a paycheck from being the Catholic Answers guy.
Yeah.
Are you afraid sometimes that you're not being as objective as you could be? And
like I said, he is asking the good questions. Even if he rehearsed them and prepped them for the questions beforehand, which cheapens the blow, at least he's asking good questions.
Really objective, you'd finally end up Orthodox or Calvinist or something else. Like, have you ever done that kind of deep search where you're like, am I defending this to defend it, or do I really believe it?
Well, I think that I'm always concerned about trying to be
Is that a
objective
toupee?
About evidences.
Tell me honestly, is that a
and
toupee?
nobody's truly objective. Everybody has a bias. Even if you try to admit your biases, there's still a bias when you try to do that. I can't think of anything that was ever a crisis. I think, though, in my journey, I might have noticed that maybe an argument I found compelling early on that led me to a certain truth, I now no longer find that argument compelling. And now it's like, oh, that wasn't a very good argument. But in its place, I found other reasons that are better. Or I don't actually need that particular data point to have my faith or something like that. So sometimes I have to reassess things in that way. But I think, I try really hard just to do what I think is right. I mean, during my conversion experience, I had many non-Catholic, non-Christian friends. My family's not Catholic. And I feel like if I truly felt like I was doing something wrong, like if I was just lying about this, I'd quit. I'm not a hopeless individual. I can, I thought about I was applying when I was discerning what job should I do in life. I'm like, I want to marry Laura if I need a real job. So what do I do? So I went to take, and they said, if you're becoming a lawyer, only be a writer, then, so like that's,
very good.
So that makes it.
One of the arguments I remember you questioning, this was back when we first met, when was that, 2012 or something, was the, I think the Kalam argument, the philosophical Kalam argument. Do you feel stronger?
No, I've changed my view on that a bit.
So what was your view and what is it now?
Well, I think I had a view that I really believe, so the Kalam argument tries to use reason to prove that the universe began to exist. And my favorite version of it was the argument from successive addition, that you can't get infinity by adding members.
Yeah.
And if the past is infinite, you can't have an infinite past if the past is formed one event at a time.
Yeah.
And I still think that that's a strong argument. The argument, and then as I defended that argument, though, I was defending more, it requires a particular theory of time to work, the A theory of time. That
There's a guy who I did a video on recently who he says he's the reason why Trent changed his opinion. I don't know if that's true or not true, but yeah.
The past, isn't real anymore. Future's not real yet.
Yep.
Each day happens one at a time. The B theory, though, says past, present, and future are all equally real.
Yeah.
It's part of a block universe.
That's Jimmy.
If you listen to Sabine, she used to have a different name, something about physics. She wasn't Physics Girl. I forget what she used to call herself. Although I think I'm still subscribed to Physics Girl. But anyway, Sabine something. They just discovered that you can do negative time. It's just been proven. So that's the current state of play in physics.
Is that Jimmy's
I
understanding?
think I would say that's Jimmy's. And now, like the arguments I use the existence of God, I would say all can work on a B theory of time.
Really?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you think the Kalam argument even works on a B theory? Is that what you just said?
Yes, if you adapt it. And I've adapted it recently. And I've come to this by being engaged with critics of the argument, like Wes Morrison, Alex Malpass, engaging their criticisms of it. And in fact, I did an episode critiquing the argument from...
Just to be clear, see, that's not the guy that did the critique of him. That's someone else, the two other people. So, but he took credit for it in his video that I reacted to.
William Lane Craig, and he responded on his podcast. So
That's got to be like you've hit the big leagues. I remember when you and I would geek out over him back in the day. To
Matt,
think
look,
one day,
Matt, look at this. William Lane Craig said I'm an idiot. he
Yes!
didn't say that, but he was very kind. And I really affirmed that he was the reason I came to know the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'll always be eternally grateful for him for that. So I always... the successive addition argument was one that I always believed in, but now I see the problems with it, especially having to add the theory of time that's kind of controversial.
Yeah.
So
I still hold to a theory of divine time travel, which you want to learn more about that, talk to me some other time, because that's a much longer conversation that'll eat up the last few minutes we have here.
That like going up against Jimmy in front of people. Like it's one thing to go up against him in his office where no one can laugh at you. But what was it like going up against him?
totally fine. Nothing to be nervous about.
I don't like the fact that Jimmy's not in charge of Catholic Answers, because he's so good that I feel he should have been promoted up to a higher level than he was promoted to. So I think it's good that he's branching out and creating his own network. I just don't think Cameron Pertuzzi is the right guy, because Cameron Pertuzzi is showing himself more and more and more to be a grifter, which is very sad, because I originally liked the guy, but the more I watch of him, the more grifty he is. And when Jimmy Akin's doing aliens and Bigfoot, Jimmy Akin's really into it. You can tell that this is not a show that he's doing. Like, he's not pretending. He really does love these things. He really does believe in Bigfoot and aliens and all that kind of stuff. Cameron doesn't. So Cameron doing this is very gross. Maybe he's doing it under Jimmy's influence. Maybe. Or maybe he's just not a very... maybe he doesn't have a strong backbone. I don't know. But it doesn't look good when he's doing the grift. So I don't know. But I hope Jimmy is successful with his endeavor with Cameron. But I don't think Cameron is going to be successful on his own, simply because he's too greedy. I mean, look at how well he's doing. He still says he's broke. So there's something else going on there.
About it all. No, it was more of a friendly chat, and I think because we agreed.
And by the way, that's not me slandering or condemning a sin of Cameron. I'm not saying he's guilty of the sin of greed. I'm saying that he himself is greedy in the colloquial sense of the word, that he's trying to get more money and he's trying to get more subscribers, even though he has great success. So either there are some bills that are really hurting him, like he's really not good at his money management, or there's something else going on.
Lot. But I was seeing more, the way I would look at the argument more now is that if the past were infinite...
And I'm sorry about that I keep on rubbing my nose. It's just, I feel like I want to sneeze.
Paradoxes would be possible based on infinite collections forming. Like, let's say every Google years, an indestructible atom comes into existence. If that happens every Google years, today there will be an infinite number of these indestructible atoms.
Wow.
Because that's how infinity works.
Right.
And so you can get these paradoxes that can emerge still. Wow. And Rob Coons and Alex Pruss have done work on this. It's called causal finitism. And so they make an argument that there cannot be, they don't make a Kalam argument. They make an
would
argument.
Actually depend on where we are in the line of infinity, but that's a different thing.
More, there cannot be infinite causal chains because paradoxes arise, like the Grim Reaper paradox.
Yeah.
And the reply to that from like Malpass and others is to say, well, there is a particular kind of principle that'll prevent the paradoxes from arising. Or you've tried it. You can't have an infinite causal certain kinds of series. It's an unsatisfiable pair. If you try to say there's been an infinite number of this kind of causation that leads to a paradox. So that's an unsatisfiable pair. And Alex Press says, so you're positing a mysterious force that prevents these paradoxes from occurring. And so I read another paper from a guy who was arguing, actually Joe Schmidt, who's an agnostic philosopher, pointed me to his paper, and I really liked it, arguing that theists should not be
That's the guy who I countered, was Joe Schmidt.
causal finitists, because God can prevent the paradoxes from occurring. So what I would say is either the universe had a beginning, so it has a cause, or it's infinite and you need God to prevent the paradoxes from arising.
Wow.
So it's a modified
Yeah.
thing. So like I said, like I might approach an
I don't believe creation is infinite. I believe it has a beginning and an end. And the beginning and end is God.
argument, and similar with the moral argument, I'm refining that too. But you
Before
go
we
back
get to
that.
the
Yeah,
moral
sure.
argument,
Yeah.
if I don't know if you've asked Jimmy this, I haven't. If the A theory of time is correct, would Jimmy agree with the philosophical Kalam?
I don't know. I think because
You know, I've said this to you before, but people should go and check out the debate between him and William Lane Craig on my show. You texted me halfway through and said it's like watching mum and dad argue, and you're like, "No, please don't get a divorce.
stop fighting.
It was
Stop
really
fighting already.
It was tense.
Yeah, but I think Jimmy, because Jimmy diverges from Aquinas a little bit here.
Yeah.
Aquinas would say that an actual infinite collection is impossible. So whereas Jimmy does not find that to be an impossibility, and Craig's argument relies on that. Aquinas just would not say that you would ever get to that point. Aquinas does not consider the series of past events an actual infinite that's problematic.
Right now, and you will get the first 3 months for free. I think the difference between Alex did a great job. I emailed him and said, "Well done."
Yeah.
The difference, though, I think, like Alex was being invited to talk to Peterson.
Yeah, it's a little different.
It's different when like Peterson's my guest, and I gotta like try to let him know I'm a friend. I'm not here to be like unnecessary.
Matt did a terrible job interviewing Jordan Peterson, by the way. He did a terrible job. It was not good.
All of you.
Yeah, but he brought Alex into his den, so
Yeah.
Alex can push
every
back.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought Alex did an excellent job. I mean, he got Peterson to essentially admit that Christ probably rose from the dead.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But I think it was difficult, and that's where I showed in my episode other parts where trying to get him to say, what do you mean you've studied the Exodus more than anybody else? Did it happen?
Right.
And even I might qualify things. Like I wouldn't say the Exodus involved
But you
millions
saw
of people.
O'Connor presses him on that as well. Did you see
Yeah,
that?
but I don't remember there being
Yeah,
a clear
I don't-
answer to that like he gave for the resurrection.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think for me, when I said to him, what's been really fun over the last few weeks is to see Peterson in my comment section responding to people. What's he saying, Josiah? He's like, it's so many comments like, try harder. Like he's on a bender. Don't read the comments, Peterson. It's not worth it.
This is why I got off social media to circle back we had at the beginning. I don't want to spend my time doing that.
No. Well, I mean, like when I said to him, best argument for atheism, and he said what did he say? It's a stupid question.
It's an invalid chess move.
Yeah. But that made me think, okay, so like I still don't know what you mean by God then. Because if I thought God was synonymous with what everyone takes to mean by existence, right? Just a bare basic what we mean by existence, like things exist or something.
Yeah.
Then to say, what's the best argument for atheism would be to say, what's the best argument against anything existing? Well, yeah, that's a stupid question. But so is that what you mean by God? Like, I wish we had begun on the God question, because I feel like, what's that?
Do you want to read them?
I mean, if they're easy to look up.
I've got them.
Okay, sure. All right. We're going to read Peterson's. First of all, I just have to say, like, it would be hard to be Peterson because that guy, he has received a lot of slings and arrows.
Filtered by above a million, so you just have to look for his.
Okay, we're going to read some of Peterson's comments.
They're so funny.
Yeah, like, it's got to be hard to be him. I mean, that man has been attacked, and he's attacked constantly. And, like, you can't listen to everybody. Like,
Right.
none of us can. Like, I know I've called you several times in the past, and I'm like, am I wrong here? Should I have said this? And there's times I'm like, I probably shouldn't have, but it's not bad enough to apologize. Or no, it was fine, like, and so like I have, and I'm sure you're similar. Like we have a small group of people that we trust, and we
We're
listen
gonna
to.
skip
If you
the
listen
Jordan
to every
Peterson
commenter,
stuff,
you
'cause I'm
drive
about
yourself
to end
insane. And
the
I know he gets a
stream.
lot of criticism, and so I don't blame him for coming out elbows up. But let's check this out.
Elbows up. I think he's like an old timey boxer.
So here's one. Sorry, what?
I think he's like an old timey boxer.
Exactly. Yeah. So someone says, "Why believe in God? Because if you don't, you go to hell." That's the kind of circular reasoning con men have used for millennia.
Is that the comment?
Yeah, trying to trip your blood of money. And he wrote back, "Aren't you a genius of cynicism and cliche?
I love how you have to do a 3/4 turn when you do Peterson.
Aren't you?" All right, here's another one. Jordan. So here's the original comment. Jordan seems to have a chip on his shoulder these days. Maybe he's going through something. That said, he obviously believes in God. I wish he would man up and say it instead of dancing around the truth. He himself said the worst thing you can say is lie to yourself. Peterson writes back, Aren't you? I love that so many of these are aren't you. Aren't you the derisive and morally superior towering intellect? Hey, Mark Dice commented on my YouTube channel?
Yeah.
That's wild. Oh. I never understood why so many people look up to Jordan Peterson as if he contains some kind of profound wisdom. I think he does. Like, he does contain profound
I think he does really. He's good at getting people to think about very important questions.
Okay, we gotta end. We gotta end. Okay, hold on. Let's go to the big one. All right. This was a nice, fun bonus stream, I guess. Super secret stream. We will be doing. I will probably re-upload this as a shorter episode later on this week if I have time to edit it down with just the stuff from Found Cause. Because I do want to highlight that they did a better video. And BS, if you're still watching, watch the Found Cause video. The one they did this time was a better video than what some of their previous content has been, and I'm hoping that means that they have a chance to grow as a channel. They don't agree with either of us, obviously, on anything, but still, I think it's good that they're developing as YouTubers. I'd like to thank Thomas, even though I didn't see him here. I'm pretty sure he watched at some point or is watching in the future. Hi, Thomas. I would like to thank anyone else who's watching. Luis, if you're out there, I love you, man. And everyone else, have a great night. And thank you for watching. We had a pretty good sized audience at one point tonight, so I appreciate everybody who hopped in. And I will talk to you all later. We're going to have some outro music because I'm in a good mood. Hey, Thomas. Hope everyone has a great night and support Found Cause, even if they disagree with us. And even if they don't want our agreement, just because want our support just because we disagree with them. Let's just be jerks about it. And let's just say we don't care that you disagree with us. We like you anyway. Anyway, everyone, have a great night. Bye. Let's go to the music.
Start to see clear, are the bad thoughts near? Or can you be where your feet are, yeah, when you stand right here and say no? I'm never gonna give up, I'm never gonna slow. The one that doesn't give up never loses to a foe. The one that could show to myself I could go all the way to the top, can't stop me. I'm a soldier, always closer till it's over. Older, but I'm bolder, moving forward, older, never slower. Good to know ya, don't go make me drop my shoulder. You need to believe you can achieve everything that you dream. Everything that you need is in the air that you breathe, it's in the mind that you feed, it's in the time that you bleed. Every second of life is another blessing to me.
And when you feel like you're nothing, but you wanna be something, yeah. Well, all you really need is hope. I just want you to trust me if you wanna be something.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, it's what you need when you're down, need when you're out. It's what you need when you're sad and when you feel left out. You feel an energy drought and then creeps out, but with a little bit of hope you can figure it out. Keep your head high even when you're down inside. Through the pain you fight and through the painful nights you keep striving, keep trying, keep driving, rising, keep thriving, surviving. Nothing's in your way but yourself. Don't need nobody's help. You can make it through this hell. Take it one step at a time, one step as you climb. If you fail you'll be fine. Get back up to the grind and never lose sight of your mission. Be driven. This life is a prison if you don't have vision. You're in it to win it, so get it, don't miss it. Your chances now, so be something somehow.